All right, today I'm working on the Tahoe, and I got the airbox off because I'm going to replace the vacuum pump. The vacuum pump is that thing down there that's kind of almost looking newer, and it supplies vacuum to the brake booster. Because this engine from the factory, when you're cruising down the road, it goes into 4-cylinder mode, and in 4-cylinder mode the throttle goes wide open and it has no engine vacuum. But I deleted the 4-cylinder mode, so it stays in 8-cylinder mode all the time, and the vacuum pump has already been replaced once under warranty, and they go bad, and it's really noisy, and it's making the noise that they say they make when they are going to go bad again. So what I'm going to do is we're going to delete the vacuum pump, and we're going to make, normally, okay, so on normal cars, this vacuum line goes to the intake manifold. Well, this thing has no intake ports, or you can't drill one and put one in either. So we're going to make an intake port, and I'm going to pause this for a second, and then I'll show you what we're going to do. One sec. So this is a throttle body spacer, which they claim adds like 14 horsepower or some stupid thing like that, which is dumb. But what I did was I bought one, and then I drilled a hole in it, and I threaded a fitting into there. So we're going to bolt this behind the throttle body, and we're going to run a vacuum line from here over to the booster, and we'll have vacuum, because anytime you are behind the throttle plate, you will have engine vacuum. So I'm going to grab tools here and pull this throttle body off, and we'll bolt this thing on, and we'll have vacuum here. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to grab my tools. Okay, so my neighbor came over and I couldn't shoot video, but I got the airbox back on, throttle body back on, and I got the throttle body spacer put in there, and I've got to get a piece of tube to connect to the fitting, but I got this temporary piece of yellow hose on there, right there, with this bolt plugging it. So now if we go and start it up, okay, being that we're behind that throttle plate now, we take this bolt out of here. There is vacuum there. I'll let it vacuum leak around my garbage. But now all I gotta do is get more of a hose, and I can run it from here to the fitting on the booster, and then we can get rid of this line and that special kit to block off the as well for oil, because it uses engine oil. So I'm gonna work on that next week and get a video on that as well. But for right now, my thought and plan worked, where we can use a spacer behind the throttle body with a fitting in there to get vacuum. It's here leaking right now too. So I'll get another video here once I get to taking that pump off there. So see you in a bit. All right, so finally back on this project where we were creating a vacuum port using throttle body spacer and a port that I drilled in here. I finally got to a store and got some hose to connect the spacer port to the brake booster, and it looks pretty bad right now because I'm just testing it. But I got it hooked up yesterday and tested it out, and it worked really well. So now our task is to remove the vacuum pump, which is driven by a belt, and it uses engine oil, and they go bad a lot, and this has already been replaced once under warranty, and it's starting to get noisy, so I don't want to have any more problems, so we got to unbolt it. There's 4 bolts, cut the belt, and then there's 2 plugs that have to go into the engine to plug the oil passages. So There's 4 bolts. I can see one of them underneath that brass thing, and there's another one under there. This is the steering shaft. Everywhere I've read says the steering shaft has to come out. So I'm gonna try to do it with the shaft in, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna grab some tools here and get to that bolt that I can see, and then try to get around to the other one on the bottom, and then 2 on the back, and then we gotta cut the belt too. So stand by, and give you an update here in just a second. All right, so you hear the background music. That's my neighbor, not me. I wouldn't listen to this stuff. Anyway, I did have to disconnect the steering shaft to get to some of the bolts, and you can kind of see there's the hole where the vacuum pump was, and there's see that large circle in the kind of the middle there. That's where oil from the engine pressurized comes out to pressurize the oil pump. So we got to put a plug into there, and then in that like cavity there's another hole in there, and that's where oil drained back from the pump to the crankcase. So if you have like a Camaro or a Corvette, this same engine is in there, but on the Corvettes and the Camaros they use an electric vacuum pump, and that whole that space is there from the factory, but there's no pump there obviously. So to fill in those holes, you can go on General Motors' parts website and buy these plugs that come factory in the Corvettes and Camaros, and these thread in there, and they have sealer already on them, and they plug up the oil passages. So we got to thread those in, and then wipe everything off, hook up the steering, and then I'm going to kind of clean up the routing on this line. We should be good to go with the vacuum pump delete. Now if down the road for some reason my setup here I don't know, won't work or whatever, you can go online and buy the Corvette vacuum pump, and I can put that in there and I can wire it into fuse panel and it'll work fine. Still better than this mechanical pump. So this is the pump, okay? It's out of there, and what really sucks is you got a GM vehicle and it says made in China on it. So this is a warranty pump. It's only been on there less than a year, and it's already kind of noisy, which tells me that it's starting to go bad again anyways. So took it off, and we'll use regular old engine vacuum like was used for forever, and it should be fine. There is a chance that we could get a check engine light, because we're kind of drawing a little bit of unmetered air into the engine. But there's one other guy that I saw on YouTube that has done something similar to this, and he did not. And when I got it hooked up, I did start and run it yesterday, and it seemed to run just fine. But I do need to drive it down the road and see how it goes. So I'm going to get these plugs put in, and then we'll finish things up in just a second.